Welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm your host, Rihanna Hoffman, and this is a space for women learning to wait well and live fully. Whether you're in the middle of uncertainty, transition, or just figuring out what's next, this podcast is here to remind you you are not behind, not forgotten, and definitely not just waiting. Let's dig into truth, grow in courage, and hold on to hope together. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. Today, I'm joined by Chloe Minyon, an artist, creative, and entrepreneur with such a powerful story of slowing down and rediscovering purpose. Chloe built her business, English Tea Paperie, during the height of the hustle culture. From the outside, it looked like success, but on the inside, she was running on empty, burned out, overwhelmed, and creatively depleted. Through that season, God began to reshape her work and her heart. What started as a love for paper, poetry, and wedding heirlooms has grown into something deeper. A lifestyle brand that invites us to slow down, pay attention, and romanticize the everyday. Chloe's offerings now reflect a life where creativity, rest, and meaningful details lead the way. Her story is such a reminder that success isn't found in hustle, but in walking with Jesus at his pace. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. Let's get started. Hey friends, I am so excited to have Chloe on with us today. Chloe, can you tell us what you do?
What don't I do?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, you have a million jobs.
I have one job. I'm an artist, but I just am multi-passionate. Yes. And there is just lots of things that kind of fall under being an artist. So I think your question is going to get answered in some of the other questions you asked me.
Beautiful. Yes.
But I'm an artist, one job, many, many different projects underneath the job.
Yes, and it's beautiful and gorgeous, and I will be linking all of her stuff in the show notes because I need you to go buy her stuff, and she does these really awesome Christmas ornaments that she hinted out on her Instagram the other day, and I'm like, I'm asking my husband, I'm like, can I please have one? They're just so pretty, and he's like, this one's blank. I was like, no, she paints on them. And they're gorgeous. And I think Claudia Campbell has one, and she posted one last year, and I was like, oh, it's just so pretty. Anyway.
She has a couple. I think she's purchased them every year. She's like amazing.
She's amazing. We had her on the podcast a couple weeks ago. But it's a Go and Tell Gals party, evidently. Not whoops. It was intentional. So now that we know that you're an artist, a very beautiful, multi-passionate artist, how do you make space for rest, for creativity, for your time with God while you're creating and doing all the things you do in your daily life?
Yeah, I make space literally first thing in the morning, to be honest with you. Journaling is huge for me. So part of my story is I used to exclusively be a wedding stationer, and I burned out very, very badly. Probably 2019. And one of the things that really got me through that was journaling. So to this day, journaling first thing in the morning, brain dump journaling, whatever you want to call it, is the way that I make time and space for God. So I get everything out of my brain, clear my thoughts, clear my mind. But essentially what happens is the very end, lengthiest part of my journaling will become a prayer to God. And it's just the way that I speak through written prayer. But I also try to really honor Sabbath. It's really hard, but the rest coming out of a burnout is really important to me as well. So I try to make space for that on a weekly basis. It's hard because responsibilities, being a parent, being a business owner.
Yeah.
But journaling and Sabbath are probably like my two big ones. And I feel like through rest and through journaling, it makes space for more creativity. Because the more that I take out of my brain and the more emotions and the more I unpack what's really going on in my head, the more God kind of gifts back creativity and things to express myself with. So I probably would say journaling, Sabbath.
That's awesome.
Two big ways.
I have a question. Do you journal on paper or do you do it digitally?
Paper. So actually, during COVID, because we had all this time, I just got my thoughts out of all of my fears, my worries, my dreams for the future, anything that was really weighing on me. And during that time, I was really questioning the wedding industry, because that's what I was at the time, was a wedding station. And that was just put on hold. We just couldn't have weddings. And so there was so much uncertainty in my job and how to make a living. Would we ever have another wedding again? And I was physically, mentally, spiritually burned out.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the only way I could truly get that out was through journaling. And I created this system that really helped me decipher what was going on in my soul and in my head, but then also map out the things that needed to be done in my life. And I actually eventually created my own journal called the Clear Mind Journal, um, which is now what I use every day, which is a little bit more prayer based, but also it's not a planner, but it does have like a to-do list area and that kind of thing. So definitely a paper girl, 100% a paper girl.
Yes, I'm also a paper girl. I was having a conversation with some other coaches yesterday. Funny how that works. And we were discussing how I was having issues remembering what to do and stay on track when I was trying to do it all digitally because I would
Yeah.
squirrel. I would be
Yeah.
like, I've got to cut this podcast, and oh, I need to do this on Substack, and I need to set this up on YouTube, and then I need to check this email, and then I need to answer this DM on Substack, and then I would like squirrel and forget what I was doing to begin with. But when I write
Yeah.
it down, I'm like, I have path. I will do all of that in 15 minutes
Yeah.
versus it taking me an hour and 45 minutes to do the first thing that I intended to do because I squirreled.
Yeah. I have to be careful though, because I am such a paper girl and my family make fun of me for this because I will think that I'm resting, but what I'm actually doing is making lists and more lists and planning. And then before I know it, I've mapped out 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, and I've got everybody's to-do lists and projects, and it's all in this massive binder, all written out, and that's not helpful. So sometimes I do, like a lot of people will say, I try not to be on my phone because I'll end up doom scrolling. And I sometimes think I have to be the opposite. I think I have to go on my phone to get like creatively inspired sometimes. Like, my family will be like, how about you just kind of go on Pinterest for a little bit and maybe like look at some pretty things and maybe not write a list. I'm like, okay, maybe I should do that. So I'm a little bit unique there in the sense of I do have to see it to help my brain kind of unpack it all, but let's not go too far.
I love that so much. You don't doom scroll, you doom lists. You write doom lists.
Yeah, it's like
That's what you
Hamilton,
do.
like, how do you write? Like, you're running out of time, like,
Yeah,
so much.
that's amazing. When did you first realize that you had the gift or calling of being an artist, and what helped you take it seriously?
That's a great question. I'll be honest and say I don't necessarily say that I take it seriously. I think
Okay.
part of God's calling for me is to not take it seriously. I think when I do try to take things too seriously is when I'll get too rigid, and that's when those massive long lists start to happen. There has to be some freedom and some fun interwoven into how I do things. To try and make this a short story, I was at a retreat in Florida, and we were given this task of taking this shell out into the ocean, and with that shell, you were going to cast a worry or a fear into the ocean and essentially be done with it. And I stood at the water and for the longest time just felt this nudge in me that it was to give up my wedding business that I
Mm,
had like built for
yeah.
years. And at that time was very financially successful. I was at the top of my game in regards to the influence and on social media. And, I felt like it was like my identity was my
Um,
career, but it was creeping in and burnout was like really starting to set in. I was overwhelmed. I was making mistakes. I felt like my whole entire life was just wrapped up in my business. And my daughter at the time also would constantly tell me that she, hated my business. She felt like I loved my business more than I loved her. And so there just was so much emotion attached, but I was quote unquote successful. So
yeah.
that was just climbing the career ladder. But I felt like the shell was my business and I was being told to throw that away, like give it up. And I was so resistant to that. And I stood there and I was holding onto the shell, refusing to throw it away. And there was like, I think maybe 30 or 50 women, I can't remember exactly, all doing the same thing. We were all on this long line. And eventually it was down to like just a couple of us. And I'm still standing there. And I, up until this point, had never heard God kind of like audibly in my head. I'd never heard him speak to me. And I, clear as day in my head, heard a voice say, throw the shell. And this gut punch. And so I threw the shell, walked away, cried, and just felt this. It wasn't relief. It was, what am I going to do now? I don't know what to do. I can't do this. And so for several years, I became quite disobedient. I knew I had this clear calling of this is not what you're meant to be doing anymore. But I also was human, and this is how I made a living, and all of my connections are in the wedding industry, and how am I meant to give this up, and what am I going to do if I don't do this? Even though, as far back as I can remember, I've been an artist. I sold my first commission when I was 15. I've never known anything else but painting and being an artist and being this deep thinker and feeler and wanting to express how I saw things in the world. But for some reason, I had put this wedding industry as my identity, and I just ran with it and couldn't see. It was like I had these blinders on. I couldn't see anything different. And so for like 3 years, I just was disobedient. But I could keep hearing, no, throw it away. And things got harder. Doors kept closing. I would mess things up in weddings. I would get, disappointed emails back. And it was just like everything was just closing in my face. And I think to answer your actual question of like, when did I realize, was when people would ask you, what do you do? And I would say, I'm a wedding stationer. And I felt like a fraud. Like I would say it and I didn't believe it. But then I would come back to my journal and I would over and over and over write, if I'm not a wedding stationer, what am I? It took a really long time, up until I want to say maybe a year ago, that I finally was comfortable with saying, I'm an artist. I don't have to be this type of artist. I don't have to sell this type of thing. I don't have to be any cookie cutter version of anything. I can just say that I am an artist and call it a day. And what comes from that artistry is enough. And so I think that when I was finally able to answer the question of what is it that you do for a living, and I tell people confidently, I'm an artist, without the starving artist, or without the, oh yeah, my niece is an artist too. That's amazing. Or you're like, oh yeah, I paint as well. And I'm like, that's amazing. There's so many different levels of what an artist can look like. In fact, I think we're all artists in some way. But how I choose to make a living doing this, that's what makes me this type of artist. And that's how I know that I'm called to this in my life.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Long story, but
that was awesome. I love it. And I think a lot of people can relate to what you just said. For example, when I stepped out of teaching, I knew my entire existence up until then that I was going to be a teacher. I went all 4 years in college without changing my major. I walked into my first classroom, was like, I'm going to do this. And the Lord was like, okay, have fun. And all of these other people are like, oh my gosh, you're so great at it. I got awards. I didn't even know you could get awards as a first year teacher. I got awards for being a teacher. And then the second year, the Lord was like, okay, you got to give it up. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Do what now? And then the Lord gave me my husband at the same time to be like, hi, you have to say no. He's going to be your no. You're going to have to. And so I remember leaving being a teacher, and you get that awkward question of like, what do you do for a living? Or what's your job? And I remember the first time somebody asked me that, I came home and cried because I had no idea. I was like, what am I going to say? I'm a domestic engineer, which is a fancy way to say I'm a housewife. Like, what am I going to say? Because it was the summer, I was still being paid, but I didn't have a plan. And so in those moments when you're following the Lord, doing what he tells you to do, and you're like, but I would like a next step, please. I would like an answer to the question of, well, what do you do? Because it seems that everybody has to do something, and some things are more accepted than others. So when you were saying, go ahead.
Such a worldly way of thinking. Where did you go to school? What do you do for a living? That doesn't tell you really that much about me as a person.
Yes.
It doesn't tell you about my character. It doesn't tell you about how I treat people. It doesn't tell you how I'm living this one beautiful life. It just kind of gives you a snapshot of how, I might sit in an office for 8 hours a day, or how much student debt I might be in. It's like it really doesn't define who you are. Yet those seem to be the two biggest questions about your identity. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame
Yeah.
that our identities get wrapped up in those questions.
Yeah. How do we fix that?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I
I
don't
don't
know. I
either.
mean, it took a lot for me in this coming to this country, because I actually, and this is probably the first time publicly I'll be saying this outside of the people that know me really, is that I don't have a college degree. I did not go to school. People assume that I have an art degree, and I don't. So coming here, I spent a lot of my first married years, because my husband's a little bit older than me. The question was always, where do you go to school? And so it was always just, I'm from London. And so I just let people make their assumptions about the amazing life I had growing up in London. But yeah, it's just kind of like in England, there are two different tracks. You graduate school and you go straight into the workforce, and you work your way up from the bottom, and which is what I did, and I had a great time doing it. Or you go into a 4-year degree and then you go out into the workforce then, and neither are really looked at, that they're kind of equal. Maybe I can't say that now. I've not lived in England for almost 20 years, but at the time, they weren't looked at very equal. Or you took a gap year and you went traveling for a year. Again, that was never looked down on either. If, you could say to people, yeah, I'm taking a gap year and I'm going to travel, and people be like, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Can't wait. There was no dropout vibe. There was no, oh, must be nice. It was always like, this was the decision you're making and it's part of your life journey. So that one is hard for me to figure out in this country, but the what do you do is probably the same in England too. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. Because the starving artist, like I still say it. I mean, I'm 43 years old, and, people ask me, what do you do? And I'm saying I'm an artist. And then it's really hard to just stop there and not try to justify it. And it's like, God is the ultimate artist. You want to talk about an artist? Right here, buddy. So it's like, let's not kind of put an artist down here and everybody else up here, but it's really, really hard to just say I'm an artist and let them figure out the rest. If they want to go look at my website, they want to go look at my work, they want to learn more about me, great. But it's not my job to then try and convince them that I'm worthy enough in their mind.
Yes. I have not unpacked my yes button, but I have a button that just says yes. And this is me hitting my yes button. I don't know where it is, but I can't go get it. Yes. 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 I completely agree with everything you just said. And you just I got all the feels, and the brain went all of the ways. 'Cause I'm like, I understand and I feel, and I'm processing how people interpret you and if you're worthy enough. And we know the Lord says we are, no matter what we're doing, whether we're very talented artists or domestic engineers, aka housewives, or anything in between. Whether, like, my husband works at the Naval Support Facility, I think is what it is. I just know he works at the base, and he is a software engineer. I don't know what he does. He tries to explain to me what he does, and I get lost about 30 seconds in, and then he tries to compare it to, like, me cooking, which is something that I do on a regular basis, and then I get more lost because he's trying to tell me that he cooks bacon at work, and I'm like, no, and he works with microwaves, and then I learned that the microwave he works on is not the one that you heat your food up with. So, like, I understand that he has a really cool job.
Right.
It's not a job that I want, but it's definitely one of those jobs when you say, oh, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm a software engineer. And automatically, like, he gets all the bonus points because he has the word engineer in his title.
Right. Right.
Versus, like, I don't even know what my response is anymore. Hey friends, if you've been wondering how to step more boldly into your calling, I have to tell you about something that changed my life. The Go and Tell Gals coaching certification. I went through this program and it equipped me with the tools, the confidence, and the community that I needed to coach and lead with Kingdom Purpose. Over 9 weeks, you'll learn a proven method, get real time feedback, and be surrounded by women who are just as passionate about making disciples and making a difference. Doors are open now for the next cohort, so if you're ready to invest in what God put on your heart, go to goandtellgals.com to apply. And when they ask you who referred you, be sure to put my name. Let's step into this together. Now back to our conversation.
But if you take out art from the world in any form, that means taking out the written word. That means taking out books and literature and movies and art and, songs, music. Can you imagine if you just took the art form out? Because that doesn't have the cred that, people think that you should have. And we only have, the certain, and I'm not like discrediting any other job. Like can't live without all the different types of careers that are out there in the world. But that's the beauty of the world, is that we're all different in different ways. And that's what makes up this one beautiful world that we live in, and the one beautiful life that we're each living. None of us are living the same life. None of us find the exact same things interesting. None of us get joy from the exact same things. So none of us are going to find the same jobs as interesting. None of us like the same sports teams. Everybody is so unique, and that's exactly the way that God made us to be. So just because one person's going to look at who I am as a human, and that's how I try to create my art too, is I know I can be a better artist in the way that I feel I will be as I continue to grow. Someone is going to look at my artwork and think that they can do it better. And that is probably a million times true. But I'm not creating my work for those people. I'm creating my work for the people that are going to look at a piece of my work and it's going to remind them of something amazing. It's going to tell their story. Or when they look at it on their walls or on their desk, it's going to bring them joy or connect them with something that they feel so deep in their soul. I'm not creating for the people who don't think my work is good enough or don't think that my style is art or whatever it is, or anything else that I create in my business. If my journal is not a system that works for somebody else because they like a different type of journal, then that's amazing, because that other type of journal should exist to help that other person. There's room for everybody in the world with all of our unique gifts and talents. It's just disheartening if we allow ourselves to take in all of the negativity and let it sit and seep in our soul. But I also won't sit here and say that I don't let any of that happen. Like, I have a ring on that says worthy, because I have to remind myself every single day that I am.
I love that. Such good stuff. Okay, next question for you.
Okay.
What has God taught you about managing your platform or your influence with open hands?
That it could all be taken away at any moment. I mean, who am I connecting with or helping or serving on my doorstep? I think that is truthfully what I had to realize when I was in burnout, and when I decided to finally step away from the wedding industry exclusively. I still work on select weddings that I really feel passionate about, but it's not what makes up the majority of my work, which meant walking away from a significant amount of money. I do not make as much money as I used to, and that was really hard to adjust to, but mentally I'm a lot happier. So I had to realize that the money can go away, but God's still going to provide. I'm still going to be able to live this beautiful life if I can look for and find the beauty in the ordinary. And I think the same is true for the people that we are serving, and where we put our influence and where we put our authenticity in front of. Because I used to be about the Instagram numbers so much. I remember growing my business in 2016, 2017, and I would huh, so I'm not even ashamed to say this, like, I would buy followers. Like, I was the girl that was like, "I just wanna get to 10K, so let me buy 250 followers," and it's like, I just bought bots, and it meant nothing. It was just like, I just wanted that number to make me look like I was better, and it's like, now I'll look at my numbers and be like, if I lost followers, great. I'm refining. In the same
Mhm.
way that I want God to refine me, I want my influence to be refined so that the people that I'm actually impacting, it means something. So I think really like looking at and saying like, I'm not going to be serving multiple weddings at one time well. So now I serve 1 to 5 a year, and I try and do a really good job at it. So now I have free time to paint what I feel like I'm being called to paint. I have free time to be able to create resources and put into time to coaching people that organically just find me and know that I might be able to be someone that will hold up a mirror for them because I don't have the answers. So literally saying no to what was, God's going to provide and give exactly what I need. I just think keeping my hands open and just saying, like, I know I can serve people if I just allow you to use me in the way that is not all about me. Because I've lived that life and it didn't work for me. It actually just threw me into burnout. And I get so much joy now out of being able to serve on boards and committees in my community that have nothing to do with how it makes me look. And the peace and comfort that I get from seeing how it serves other people is way better than how many likes I might get on an Instagram story that no one's going to care about a week from now.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
just constantly saying, okay, I don't make as much money as I used to, but I make enough to survive. And you've helped me build a beautiful life and you've opened up my eyes and you're continuously refining me to be more like Jesus, to be able to serve people in my community and give back. I feel like that is more worthy of a beautiful life than some picturesque falsehood that is on social media that would be like a dopamine hit for me.
Mhm.
And the second someone would question it, and I knew that it was me being a fraud, it would be this constant spiral inside that I felt like I had to do better next time. And it was just constantly climbing this worthiness ladder that I never really ever was able to reach the top. So beauty in the ordinary, beauty in the small, simple, wonderful that makes me feel joy. And hopefully, what I create out of that gives back to other people so that they can also feel the beauty and joy too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. I have another question.
Okay.
Because the podcast is called Not Just Waiting, and we know that everybody is waiting on something, whether it's just not just Jesus, but like Jesus to come back, because we are
Hmm.
all waiting on that one.
Right.
You've talked a lot about transitioning seasons, and in those seasons, we know that there's waiting. So, how do you wait well in either your current season or in previous seasons? Because a lot of times we want to be passive, and maybe like
Mm.
my personal preference would be to sit on my couch and watch a movie and eat cookies. But I can't do that. We have to be active in our waiting while we're waiting for the Lord to provide the next step. So, how are you waiting well in this season?
Yeah. I think it's slowing down enough to see the beauty because I'm trying to learn that we live in the everyday moments that feel monotonous. But then when we look back on our lives, we remember the lessons and it
Mhm.
feels like big chunks of time that we remember. But as we're living it, it's these tiny everyday seconds that just go on. So in this season I'm waiting right now because I still feel like I'm not quite where the Lord is taking me in regards to my career. It's still this, oh, okay, well that was unexpected. Every couple of months I'm like, Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm definitely multi-passionate, and I think I might have just confused my audience. Like every few months, and it's like, okay, keep. But my daily prayer is like, refine me, Lord. And so it's like, oh, I keep asking you to refine me, and you keep refining me. It's like when you ask the Lord, like for patience, it's like, don't ask for that because you're going to get something that's going to make you be patient.
Mm-hmm.
So if I keep asking to be refined, I'm going to have to sit in the refinement.
Yeah.
And so I'm now learning to look for the beauty in like the really small. And that's how I'm waiting is I'm waiting by finding joy in the tiny ordinary and making small things special. I know that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was living this like great influencer type life of everything had to be big and, you know, like worthy. Now I'm realizing that a lot of things I do are in private and it's just me. I don't need to take a photo of this. Like, if I take a photo of it, it's because I just want to look back on it and remember, not because I want to post it.
Yep.
That sunset's really beautiful and it feels great, and I won't ever see that same sunset again. So enjoy it in this moment, not the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
world needs to see it. Or, just painting for me, that is how I'm waiting because if I try and force something, it's not going to come from a place of goodness. And again, just reminding myself that I think going back to your previous question of, how has God taught me about my influence or, with open hands, it's just the exact same of how am I waiting well is just knowing that he's always got me, and I have a little bit of a love affair with birds, so it's always reminding myself that if he's feeding the sparrows, then he's certainly going to provide for me. But yeah, just enjoying the everyday moments because when I look back in my life, I'm never going to have this exact moment. I'm never going to have this exact same conversation.
Yeah.
This is a precious time and this is a precious conversation I'm having right now. I'm not going to have this again with anybody else. It could be a similar conversation. It's not going to be this exact conversation.
Yeah. I love that. It's like taking the small things captive. A lot of times
Hmm.
we want to just, okay, where's the next thing? We got to keep going. But I love that you're like, no, no, we need to take this moment
Yeah.
and enjoy it because this is what the Lord has given us and this is how he wants us to wait in it. And I love that so much. Is there anything else you wanted to share with our peoples?
Yeah, it's funny actually because I was journaling this morning, as I do, and just I wrote down something that was to myself, but I feel like it could be shared with everybody else. Is that God is the one in the transformational business. Just look at the transformations that He did in the Bible. Imagine what He could do with your life if we just took the time to listen and not resist.
Mic drop. Done.
But it's true. It's like He really is in the transformational business. But we just try to be in charge so much. We think that we're the ones in charge who can just make the rules. And if we just step back just a little and just try to not resist so much, listen to some of the other whispers.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I think a lot of us can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of us, especially the women that I speak to, kind of know and hear the whispers. They just tend to ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe we write down the whispers and we start bringing them to life just a little.
I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day and the next 3 days after that and be like, this is one of those whispers that Chloe was talking about. I should write it down and post it on my fridge. I should. Maybe I will. I should. We'll talk about that later. But thank you for being on the podcast. This was a joy and a privilege, and my brain is going like 90 to nothing trying to figure out what next steps to take after this conversation with you because I'm like, what is the Lord trying to say to me that I'm just refusing because I'm a stubborn child? Friends that are listening, I'm going to link all of Chloe's Instagram, maybe not all of Chloe's Instagrams, because she's got at least two. I'll ask her which Instagram I can link later. And her website. And I need you to go look at her website because her art is just stunning. I could just stare at it for days. It's just so beautiful. And I'm not going to fangirl over it right now, right? I'm not going to do that. So when you follow Chloe's Instagram, it's probably going to be her business Instagram. Please tell her thank you for joining. And you totally need to order things, people, especially the Christmas ornaments that are coming up soon because they're just gorgeous. And she usually has a limited supply. So make sure you get on top of that. But Chloe, you're amazing. Let's do it again. Everybody else, we'll see you later. Bye, friends.
Bye.
Hey, friends, if you've been encouraged by the Not Just Waiting podcast, I've got something special for you. We've designed a brand new t-shirt that speaks right to the heart of our community. On the front, it says loved, seen, becoming. 3 words that remind us who we are in Christ, right in the middle of whatever season we're walking through. It's more than a shirt. It's a declaration of truth you can carry with you and share with the world. Whether you wear it to Bible study, coffee with a friend, or just around the house, this tee is a simple way to encourage yourself and spark meaningful conversations. You can grab yours today by heading to the show notes and clicking the link, or you can search the Loved, Seen, Becoming t-shirt on Etsy. Let's wear our reminder together. You are loved, you are seen, and you are becoming who God made you to be. Thanks for listening to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I hope today reminded you that even in the in-between, God is working, and you are not alone. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend? And don't forget to hit follow so you never miss a moment of truth, hope, and real conversation. You can find me on Instagram at rihanna.ivy.hoff and join the community over on Substack for deeper reflections and weekly encouragement. Until next time, take heart, friend. God is in the waiting with you.